You already know when someone is reading you. Before a single word leaves their mouth, you feel it. A slight pause that lasts too long. A look that stays a little deeper than normal. A silence that feels like it has weight in it. And suddenly, your awareness shifts inward. You are not just in the room anymore. You are in yourself, watching how you are being seen. That shift is subtle, but once it happens, it is hard to undo. Some people don't need to speak loudly to take control of that space. They don't interrupt. They don't challenge. They don't even try to dominate in obvious ways. Yet somehow, after being around them, you feel slightly more careful, slightly more exposed, slightly certain of your own natural flow. And the strange part is this: you can't clearly explain why. Nothing obvious happened, no conflict, no argument, no direct pressure, and still, something inside you adjusts. These are the people who understand emotional space in a way most people never notice. Not because they are magical, but because they are observant in a way that becomes invisible over time. They notice tone before words, meaning before sentences, emotion before expression fully forms. And because of that, they don't react to what you say. They react to what you are about to say. That creates a feeling in others that is hard to name. It feels like being slightly anticipated, slightly predicted, slightly known. At first, that feels comforting, because being understood is rare. And when someone understands you without effort, your nervous system relaxes around them. You start to speak more freely. You stop filtering as much. You assume clarity is mutual. But something deeper is happening at the same time. The more someone reflects you accurately, the less effort you put into defining yourself around them. You stop shaping your words carefully. You stop controlling your emotional presentation. You begin to let them see you instead of actively showing yourself. And slowly your sense of self begins to lean outward, not dramatically, not all at once, but gradually, in small unnoticed shifts. This is where emotional influence begins, not through force, but through familiarity. There is a type of person who develops this effect unintentionally. They are not trying to control you. In fact, they often believe they are just being present, just being attentive, just being understanding. But their attention is not random. It is structured by years of learning how to read emotional patterns. They notice hesitation in your voice. They notice what you avoid saying. They notice what you return to when you feel safe. And because they notice all of that, they begin to feel slightly ahead in conversations without ever speaking first. This creates an imbalance that is almost impossible to point at. You feel open, they feel composed, you feel expressive, they feel observant. And over time, that difference becomes the invisible shape of the relationship. One of the most important things to understand is that they rarely tell you what they want directly. Not because they are hiding something obvious, but because they are used to shaping outcomes indirectly. If someone learns early in life that direct expression doesn't always work, they begin to rely on timing, presence, and emotional positioning instead. They don't push, they align. They wait until the moment feels right. And because of that, their influence doesn't feel like pressure. It feels like your own decision. That is the part most people don't notice until later. You don't feel controlled. You feel understood. And when understanding and direction start to overlap, the mind stops separating them. There is also something else that happens in these dynamics. They remember emotional details with unusual clarity. Not just facts, but feelings attached to those facts. The thing you said when you were tired, the way your tone changed when a topic came up, the moment your energy dropped even slightly. And because they remember these things, they can reconnect with you in very specific ways. They know what version of themselves makes you open up. They know what kind of presence makes you soften. They know what kind of silence makes you fill the space. And again, this is not always conscious manipulation. In many cases, it is learned emotional intelligence shaped by environments where reading others was necessary for stability. But impact does not depend on intention. It depends on effect. And the effect is that you begin to feel emotionally seen in a way that is rare, almost addictive in subtle ways. Because being seen that clearly feels like safety. But safety that comes from another person can slowly become dependence if you are not aware of it. Over time, something changes quietly. You start checking your internal reactions through their responses. If they feel calm, you feel calm. If they feel distant, you feel uncertain. If they engage deeply, you feel more alive. This is how emotional calibration shifts outward. And once it shifts, it does not announce itself. You only notice it when you are away from them and feel slightly less defined, slightly less certain, slightly less you than when they are present. That contrast is important. Because real connection does not erase your sense of self when it is absent. It does not make your clarity dependent on proximity. It does not cause your internal voice to weaken when another voice is not there to reflect it back. But certain dynamics create that illusion. They feel like depth. They feel like emotional intensity. They feel like being understood in a way that is rare. And all of that can be true at the same time. The difficulty lies in separating connection from influence. Because influence in this form is not loud, it does not command, it does not force. It blends, it adapts, it mirrors, it becomes familiar enough that you stop questioning it. Another layer of this is silence. Not normal silence, but emotionally loaded silence. The kind that appears after something unsaid. The kind that follows a shift in tone. The kind that makes you rethink what you just expressed. In that silence, most people begin to adjust themselves. They soften their words, they clarify their meaning. They try to restore emotional balance without being asked to, and slowly silence becomes a tool, not because it was used aggressively, but because humans naturally try to repair emotional distance, especially with people they are attached to. That attachment is what makes the pattern powerful, not fear, not control, attachment. There is also a deeper psychological layer that often goes unnoticed. People who develop this level of emotional awareness usually did not start from comfort. They started from unpredictability, environments where moods changed without warning, where emotional signals had to be read carefully to stay safe, where understanding others was more important than being understood. Over time, that becomes a skill. Then it becomes identity. Then it becomes the way they relate to everyone, even when the original danger is gone. So what looks like emotional depth is often also emotional protection, a way of staying slightly ahead so nothing unexpected can hurt them again. But when that way of being enters relationships built on trust, it creates imbalance. Because one person is reading deeply while the other is simply being. One is analyzing patterns while the other is expressing naturally. One is holding emotional structure while the other is living inside it. And over time, the person being observed begins to adjust without realizing it. Not because they are weak, but because humans naturally adapt to the emotional environment they are placed in. The most important realization is not about labeling people. It is about noticing shifts in yourself. How quickly you change your tone around certain people. How easily you adjust your thoughts based on how they might respond. How much your internal clarity depends on external reflection. That is where awareness begins. Not in judging others, but in returning to yourself. Because the moment your sense of stability comes from inside instead of reaction, the entire dynamic changes. You are no longer shaped by subtle emotional movement around you. You observe it, but you do not lose yourself inside it. And that is the difference between being deeply connected and being quietly influenced. One keeps you present with others. The other slowly pulls your center away from yourself. And the moment you notice that difference clearly, something important returns. Your own voice. Not louder, not dramatic, just clearer. And once that clarity returns, it becomes harder for anything to shift it without your awareness.